I feel like I was dragged by the devil.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times the police framed people.
They can't make mistakes. What wrangles in our case that it took so long, 16 years? They've known for a long, long time that we were innocent.
For this list, we'll be looking at the most controversial instances where law enforcement officials fabricated evidence or illegally influenced investigation outcomes to implicate innocent people. These cases involved plots that went beyond police bias and coercive interrogation. We'll be covering those in another list.
Every day we wake up and we fighting against the system. And we're fighting for those younger than us, those who are unfortunate, those who feel like there's no hope. We here.
What other police frame-ups have you heard about? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. David Ranta. On February 8, 1990, Haskell Wurzburger, a Hasidic rabbi living in Brooklyn, was murdered during a botched robbery. Despite the lack of any physical evidence implicating him, David Ranta was arrested and charged with the crime.
Ranta, who fit the suspect's description, blonde and athletic, was arrested and convicted, but now the case has fallen apart.
Multiple witnesses pointed Ranta out as the perpetrator, and Detective Louis Scarcella of the NYPD claimed that he had confessed. Ranta was found guilty and handed a 37-year sentence. However, decades later, one of the witnesses admitted that he had been coached by Scarcella to pick Ranta out of a lineup. Further investigation also showed that the detective had secured incriminating testimonies from two other witnesses by providing them with inappropriate favors.
The evidence that was before the jury at every level eroded, so there was no case left. So for me, it was very, very simple. David Ranta should not have spent one more day in jail.
Ranta's conviction was ultimately vacated, and he was awarded millions of dollars in compensation.
I'm overwhelmed. It's interesting, and I would just like to say thank each and every one of you for supporting me today on this. As I said from the beginning, I had nothing to do with this case.
Number 9. Arthur Allen Thomas. Harvey and Jeanette Crew were two New Zealand farmers who were killed on their farm in June 1970. Authorities first suspected Jeanette's father of the crime due to some familial dispute between the two. But when Jeanette's body was found about 2 months later, police turned toward Arthur Allen Thomas, a neighboring farmer. Thomas was convicted twice of the murders after an empty bullet shell linked to his rifle was found on the Crew farm.
Some hard times, but put it into words is very hard.
Due to an outcry from the farming community, the case was re-examined. It was discovered that police had planted the bullet shell after impounding Thomas's rifle as part of their investigation.
They said that Arthur Allen Thomas was just a half-wit. They could do anything and get away with it.
He received an official pardon from the state after spending 9 years in prison.
The Royal Commission of Inquiry found that he was framed by the police to get a wrongful conviction.
Number 8. Kathryn Johnston. In 2006, a botched drug raid led to the unfortunate death of 92-year-old Kathryn Johnston in her Atlanta, Georgia home. Police had forced their way into the house on November 21st based on inaccurate information that illegal substances were being sold there. Johnston reportedly shot once at the officers, who returned fire and took her life in the process.
Today, those close to the case see similarities between Johnston's death and the death of Breonna Taylor.
After finding no drugs, the officers planted some on the property in an apparent attempt to cover up the incident. They also attempted to coerce an informant to lie about buying narcotics at Johnston's house. 3 policemen involved in the case were brought up on felony murder and burglary. They eventually pled guilty to lesser charges and were handed varying prison sentences. Number 7. Gerard Puana. Louis and Kathryn Kealoha, an influential couple in Honolulu, Hawaii, abused their power in framing Kathryn's uncle, Gerard Puana, of a federal crime. Louis, an ex-police chief at the Honolulu PD, and Kathryn, a former prosecutor, had been embroiled in a legal dispute with Puana.
I think this is all about is you have people to promote their own professional and personal agendas to achieve their own goals. This is something everyone wants to hang their hat on and to promote themselves.
The case revolved around claims that Kathryn had defrauded Puana and her own grandmother of nearly $150,000.
Federal prosecutors say Kathryn became desperate to destroy the Puana's credibility before that civil case went to trial.
In an apparent attempt to discredit their uncle, Kathryn and Louis fabricated evidence that he had stolen their mailbox. They brought in 2 other Honolulu police officers, Derek Han and Min Hung Nguyen, and manipulated surveillance footage to implicate Puana. Their activities were eventually uncovered uncovered, and all 4 conspirators were sentenced to prison for their crimes.
A settlement was reached in which the city will pay Gerard Puwana and the estate of his deceased mother, Florence Puwana, $2.85 million.
Number 6, James Saville.
I'm a cop, policia.
Eres un policía.
I just enforce the law and put people in jail that violate the law.
Throughout his career, Joe Arpaio, the infamous former sheriff of Maricopa County in Arizona, was at the center of multiple controversies.
I think everybody is now saying, leave our sheriff alone. I think I've reached a stage now where I got the people behind me and they're getting tired of everybody taking shots at me.
He was even convicted of a federal crime for which he was notoriously pardoned by former President Donald Trump.
The 85-year-old former lawman could have been sentenced to up to 6 months in jail. The pardon, though, does not erase his conviction.
But perhaps one of his lesser-known scandals involved an alleged murder plot by a one James Saville. Back in 1999, Saville was arrested for taking part in a conspiracy to assassinate Arpaio with a bomb.
I am not going to be intimidated by anyone.
Although Saville spent 4 years in jail, he was eventually acquitted when the alleged plot was revealed to be a publicity stunt orchestrated by Arpaio himself. Saville filed a lawsuit against Arpaio and Maricopa County and received a settlement of $1.1 million. Number 5. The Birmingham Six. On November 21, 1974, 2 pubs in Birmingham, England were the targets of explosive attacks, which were attributed to the Irish Republican Army. In the aftermath, 6 Irish suspects were arrested and interrogated under inhumane conditions. As a result, 4 of them were forced to confess to the crime.
It became one of the most notorious miscarriages of justice in British history.
In addition to their confession, the prosecution also presented evidence during the trial that apparently showed that some of the men had come in contact with explosive devices.
This evidence has since been completely discredited, but that was the information the police had when the interrogations began.
This evidence was later shown to be bogus. 16 years after their initial conviction, the Birmingham Six were absolved of the charges and released from prison.
Justice! I don't think them people in there have got the intelligence nor the honesty to spell the word, never mind dispense it. They're rotten!
Number 4. Jamal Trulove.
We definitely got to keep on shining the light on the inconsistencies of the law and the injustices that's going around, you know, just in general, especially in San Francisco.
In 2007, Jamal Trulove was an aspiring actor and rapper who had just appeared in an episode of the reality show I Love New York 2. That year, he was also implicated in the murder of a man named Seyu Kuka on a San Francisco, California street. Trulove was pointed out as the perpetrator by a relative of Kuka, who claimed to have witnessed the murder from a second-floor window. Turns out, this testimony was unduly influenced by police officers, who not only led the witness to pick Trulove from a lineup, but also suppressed any evidence of his innocence.
And the judge kind of agreed with the DA and then had her own opinion, almost saying that she believed the witness.
As a result, Trulove was found guilty of the crime and imprisoned for 6 years before he was retried and acquitted.
We proved to the jury that they framed me, you know, and that's why I was rewarded at the end of the day. Not that I was wrongfully convicted, but that I was framed. And, you know, and that's how they awarded me the $10 million, aka 13.1. But that's just a couple extra.
Number 3. The Victims of Reynaldo Guevara. Reynaldo Guevara is a retired Chicago police detective who is alleged to have framed more than 50 people for crimes they claimed not to have committed.
What's ironic is the way these cases have been handled, the duration of time, and how it's costing taxpayers an immense amount of dollars.
Guevara used multiple tactics in implicating his victims, including coercive interrogation, fabricating evidence, and pressuring witnesses to give false testimonies.
Decades later, dozens of men say Guevara framed them, allegedly.
I want him in jail. I want him to go through what I went through.
As a result of the tireless work put in partly by family members of some of Guevara's victims, evidence of the former detective's gross misconduct was revealed.
This was a conspiracy created by Mr. Guevara and other agents.
This was met with a public outcry that eventually led to an independent review of his cases by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. No less than 7 people have had their criminal convictions overturned due to this investigation. Guevara, however, maintains no wrongdoing.
In all, Chicago has paid $75 million to investigate, defend, and settle wrongful conviction lawsuits linked to Guevara. That includes $53 million in payments to Rivera and 3 other men with overturned cases and $20 million to private attorneys.
Number 2, the Rampart scandal. In the late 1990s, a corruption scandal broke among officers of the Rampart division of the Los Angeles Police Department. The ordeal was uncovered after Rafael Perez, an officer with the department's Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums, or CRASH unit, was arrested for stealing narcotics from an evidence locker.
He got caught stealing cocaine from the police evidence room and replacing it with flour.
He had the whole LAPD system completely worked out.
Apparently he'd been doing it for a while, and then got careless. One time he took the cocaine and put the flour in, and they caught him.
In exchange for immunity, Perez gave testimony to prosecutors that implicated dozens of police officers in various acts of corruption and misconduct. This included multiple instances where officers falsified evidence and committed perjury in order to frame innocent people. As a result, more than 100 criminal convictions were overturned, with the city of Los Angeles shelling out about $125 million in civil settlements.
The department can only remain hopeful that these new standards will actually stop police corruption.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. The Victims of Reynaldo Guevara. Biscayne Park, a small village in Miami-Dade County, Florida, once recorded a 100% clearance rate for all burglaries committed. While this seemed like commendable work by the police department, it turned out to be the result of a conceited effort by the police chief, Reynaldo Guevara, to frame innocent people for unsolved crimes.
It's probably more than 2,000 people who were impacted.
According to reports, Guevara had specifically directed his officers to falsely arrest and charge random black people with unsolved burglaries. This was done to improve his department's crime clearance rate.
We're told that they did this because they wanted to maintain their arrest record up to 100%, making sure that they were able to show that they were doing a good job of solving crimes in their city.
At least 3 people were arrested and charged, with one of them spending 5 years in prison. Guevara was tried on charges of conspiracy to deprive individuals of their civil rights and handed a 3-year prison sentence.
3 other former officers have also pleaded guilty in the case, and prosecutors say the crimes for which black people were falsely arrested included burglaries and vehicle break-ins.